Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you very much for joining me here. I hope you're having an amazing day. We're taking a look here at SEI, seeing what's going on. I got a lot of requests for this one here, mainly from our community members. If I recall correctly, it was a request from Jules. Thank you very much for asking that I cover this. And again, if you're part of my Discord community, just jump on over to request and feel free to make one. I'll get to it at my earliest convenience. Also, quick congratulations to our Premium and Premium Plus members. We took some healthy profits there from a lever short, 82% in 2.5 days, and a 4-hour long from Gala at about 22%. Keep in mind, these are only 5x leverage trades, so a lot of my members are using 10 to 20x leverage, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend just based on the structure of my swing trades. But simply put, awesome job, very well done. I'm super happy to help, and glad it's working out well for you. Thanks for the wonderful feedback too. So let's talk about this here. There's kind of an elephant in the room here, this falling wedge pattern I want to discuss, and then a few other things too with buy side and sell side liquidity. So we could very well see a sweep of this liquidity here when the price ramps back up, but more importantly here, the sell side liquidity levels have been fairly well swept, and we could see one last sweep of this lower level here before the next leg up. Okay, so keep in mind, we may not be at the bottom, but we're getting darn close. Okay, if we take a look here at the closes here, candlestick close, I mean, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, over almost a dozen candlestick closes at or above this level. Okay, so a lot of candles are closing at this level, basically getting us an impression that we are getting close to the bottom. Okay, you could argue that's a triple bottom, but it's kind of ugly, probably not. Either way, cool stuff here. We'll talk about that as well. So let's go ahead and just jump into the big picture stuff here. Generally speaking, we are still bearish. You got to recognize that RSI is pretty low. We do have an increase in money flow, which typically happens anytime you bounce off 30 anyway. So oftentimes the money flow does come down to that level and inevitably recover. Same thing happens on the inverse as well. When it gets maxed out, money flow index typically pulls back because there's selling pressure. Right now, I wouldn't say there's buying pressure, but there's more buying in the last 24 hours than in the previous past, or most recent past rather. Okay, it's definitely looking good there. Take a quick peek over here at the moving averages. We don't have a lot of data so far, but we do have a 20-day SMA telling us that about 12 cents could be resistance. Again, we're still below that level. I typically prefer to take long positions above the 20-day SMA, and it just kind of makes sense because you're on the right side of the tracks. But in truth, there's a decent amount of profit here depending on how you trade between here and there. And that could be an initial rejection spot, but there's a good 5% profit between the current price point and that SMA. Hypothetically, you could take a long to that level. We also have the 20-day SMA traveling behind at about 13 cents. So 12 and 13 are kind of the common denominators here, things to maybe remember or consider when looking at that. We also want to kind of take a quick look here at Fibonacci retracement levels and kind of see we are averaging ourselves out between 0.236 and 0.382, a very common area in which we see retracement. And generally speaking here at this point, even though we're making lower lows and lower highs, there is potential for an upswing. And what I mean by that here is we do have a MACD convergence. It's not super strong, but it is kind of telling us there's been a shift in momentum in the last 48 hours. Okay, so of all this momentum to the downside, it has to come to an end eventually. I mean, in truth, cryptocurrency, I've seen things just bleed out for months or years. But simply put, this is not that terrible of a situation. We had an overextension to the downside, came up to a 6, getting a little bit of a reset here. So in truth, we are starting to converge and we have some positivity. There's no doubt that the current situation right now, as is, not fantastic. I mean, we're below 50 on the RSI here as well. We're getting rejected essentially by that lower level. And the truth is that this price could swing a lot lower. Okay, so if Bitcoin does pull back a little bit further, in fact, why don't we take a quick peek here at Bitcoin, kind of comparatively, see what this looks like. Because it's important to recognize that there's a common trend here. So we see Bitcoin come up here, got rejected off 28,000, kind of expecting that. And then, of course, we can see the price section here for SUI. So similar, yet different, right? But still, you got this up and down pattern. So if Bitcoin does come down any further, we could see the same thing as well here. And I am kind of anticipating somewhat of a retest at 27 to 26,000 for Bitcoin. So I would speculate we could see a lower price point for this coin here in the near future. It may not be all that significant, but again, it is definitely performing like that. The last thing to look at here too would be kind of just kind of comparing the larger time frames. And if we look at kind of zooming out a little bit, you can see Bitcoin is, of course, performing better than this coin. But when Bitcoin pulls back, this coin pulls back as well. So it's important to understand the pairing between these two coins. I think it's good to know that. So make sure you watch my Bitcoin videos if you aren't already doing so. kind of stay abreast of what's going on with that coin because it is kind of the big deal there. All right. Last but not least, here, let's go ahead and take a look at Ichimoku Cloud. We can see we're trying to break above, getting close. We're within the cloud now, which is technically a no trade zone, but in truth, we wicked up there a little bit, and we're starting to maintain above this moving average as well as the conversion line being above the baseline. So in truth, this isn't like a massively awesome like entry scenario, but it is telling us that we're in a better position than we were before, and we're getting on the right side of the tracks there. So this is kind of the first thing you want to see on a trend reversal is, first of all, you can identify there's higher highs and higher lows, of course, but you can also identify too that we're above the cloud or within the cloud, and of course the conversion lines above the baseline. Those are all very positive signs. We don't have any massive overextension here as well, so we're looking good there. Last thing we can peek at here is our CC golden indicator, kind of giving us a sell signal here recently and letting us know we are below some of those moving averages. So it might be advantageous to wait for the price action to get back in the 11.6, 11.7 range before considering a long to ensure it can maintain that price point. So all in all, I would say that's still bearish in the overall sense here for this coin, but it certainly looks like it's willing to shift momentum. And just to quickly touch on this pattern here, falling wedge patterns, believe it or not, are bullish. I know it seems weird because obviously in most cases they're highlighted as red, and it doesn't seem to make sense because it's coming down. But what's actually happening is it's slowly contributing to the fact that it's slowly making lower lows and lower highs, but it's working itself into a wedge pattern. And as that price starts to contract, it starts to build propensity for an explosion in either direction. In most cases, I think a statistical probability in this coin or this kind of layout is roughly 70-80%. Again, 59% of statistics are made up on the spot, right? So you can't trust everything you hear, but in my experience, falling wedge patterns have a tendency of being a lot more potential for breakouts. We've even seen that a lot with a few of the coins that I've covered recently. They all have falling wedge, and it's usually the start. And what you'll see next too, and this could actually happen, there could be a double bottom form here, and then that's when you see the price explode. Okay, so we could very well see a little bit, again, a retest here about the 11.3, maybe low 11 cent range, but I think it's a good bouncing point from any one of these areas here. So to me, I would much rather lean more towards getting a little skin in the game here and maybe adding to my position as the price comes down, because it doesn't seem like it's going to come much lower. Once again, we do have this liquidity area here down below that we need to recognize. So the price could wick as low as about 10.8, maybe even 10.5, but likely to recover from there. So I got higher hopes on this coin here. I think we're looking pretty darn good here in the overall sense of things, considering how bearish it is. It's still performing quite well. The only caveat here and the only disclaimer I need to say is that if Bitcoin has a really, really bad day, we come down to 25, 26,000, you bet your butt this coin is going to retest that 10 cent, possibly even lower price point area, because of the simple fact that it is it's paired itself with Bitcoin in the sense that it's almost 2x of a Bitcoin correction to the downside, and it hasn't fully broken to the upside yet. But with these support levels, as well as the patterns that we're seeing here so far, I think there's a lot of potential for this coin to increase. Okay, so again, I think we're looking pretty decent. Just keep in mind we do have some resistance levels above us with these moving averages here, roughly in the 12 to 13 cent range. So if you are to take a long, consider taking some profits here, somewhere at basically 12 or 11.8 cents. That way you can, at least get some profit in before it pulls back again if it wants to. We got to expect the worst and hope for the best, right? We can expect this price to continue to go lower, but we can hope that it hits our targets and strategically put in our take profit targets. And again, most of my take profit targets also, by the way, if you're curious, because I have usually an average of, excuse me, like 5 profit targets per trade. The reason why I do that is because it ensures that we are profitable. We hit our first target, take a majority of our profit, and kind of let the rest ride. But for the most part, we adjust our stop loss to break even once we hit that first target. Price pulls back, you're always in the green. But I like to use Fibonacci retracement levels and key level supports and resistances to essentially determine those take profit targets. And a little pro tip too, if you're having trouble finding the right profit targets, you always seem to not quite get filled. Take a Fibonacci retracement level and put your entry just below that, right? So for example, in this scenario here, say your take profit target is 0.618 at 1207. Put it down at like 1198 or 1195. So that way you get filled, the price rejects off that level. You'd be surprised how round numbers have a tendency of getting rejected, or price bounces right off those levels. Do yourself a favor, use odd numbers and you'll actually get filled a little bit more frequently. It's usually a good thing. So I hope that makes sense for you. Thanks again so much for watching. Hope you have a good rest of your day. See you on the next one. Take care.